Hello. Let's talk about the sun. The sun in astrology is absolutely incredible and I love it. Let's be honest, I just really love all the planets and I love all the signs. But let's talk about and focus on the sound of the sun today. So, the sun is typically talked about. I think everybody knows their sun sign, right? And when the the regular world talks about astrology and they're like, what are you? They're asking about the sun sign. Now, me personally, the sun sign's cool, but I want to know what your heart is. I want to know where your moon is, and that's a video for another day, right? But our sun sign is it's the part of us that everybody sees. And it's like the conscious part of us, right? But that's not what I hear when I listen to the sun. So, when I very first listened to the sun quite a while ago, I heard this is where your voice shines in your life and naturally shines in your life. So, I wanted to take just a few minutes and kind of run down and go through all of the different houses in in the chart and how that might look with the sun shining in that area, in that specific area of your life. Now, I'm going to say this caveat before we go into it. I'm going to say a couple of things. One, it is important that we see where our voice is already shining in our life, because when we are um, stepping into a place of vulnerability, which we always are, we're either going to step into exposure or vulnerability with our voice. We're always doing that when we step into our moon sign, when we step into our moon sound, which is the base of the sound of our voice, right? Is where our moon sits. At least that's what I hear in astrology. This is the gospel of astrology according to Seidel. Okay. So, and the most vulnerable thing that we can do is to sit in our moon sign, because that is our heart. That is our inner world. It's also the most powerful sound we can make because it connects us to our audience like that, and it draws our audience into us. But it's also, because it's our heart, it's also the most vulnerable sound we can make. Anytime we are going to do something that's the most powerful thing, it's also the most vulnerable, and then also can be the scariest thing that we can do, right? And so, when we're working on taking steps to be in our moon sound, we want to see how our voice is already shining in our life so that we can gain that confidence, so we can have that courage and that bravery to continue to step forward into the sound that is going to create the greatest impact on not just our audience, but in our life and in our world and for our world, right? Okay, so that's exciting, very exciting. And so that's why I want to go over the sun and where your voice shines in your life. Now, this is what I do in one-on-one sessions with people. We really talk about it and we go over the examples of how this is showing up in their life. And this brings me to the second kind of this is the caveat, right? So, um, if there is a relationship between your moon and another planet that is creating a struggle, you might not naturally or consciously see your voice shining in that area of your life. And so I just want to put that out there. And there could be some other signs next to, or other planets next to your sun that will create a kind of a dissonance experience with your sun. Now, saying all of that, I do want to say that there has not been a person that I have met with where we haven't, even with there being a struggle between the communication between a couple different planets. And I'm just going to use this. I met with a woman. We talked about where her sun was at, and I said, "This is where it naturally shines." And she's like, "I'm not seeing that." And I could tell, like that made sense to me based on the other signs in that same house. And so it really took some fine tuning, and I stopped and listened to exactly what her son was saying to her, what her son was saying to me, so that I could then share that message to show where and how her voice was shining in her life. And the moment I said it, she was like, yes, I see that. And I see that so clearly. And then we were able to step into her moon and talking about that sound. So, very important. And saying that if you do not see it overtly in your life, that's okay. It's there. And as we like really dial in and listen to your son, like your son specifically, we can hear where it is shining in your life, because it is. It already is. Your voice is shining in some area of your life already. Okay. So let's jump in. Shall we dive in? The first, so we're going to start at the first house and we'll work our way all the way to the 12th house. So the first house is the house of the self, the house of the body. Like it is you, it is who you are at the core. And so if your sun is in your first house, then it'll just be like, ain't nobody to tell me. Like I say who, I say when, I say where, I say who, that Pretty Woman quote. But it is that, like, your voice is the most powerful. And this is true for everyone, right? Our voice is the most powerful voice. It is the most important voice, right? If I don't believe what you're saying, it doesn't matter if you're telling me all these wonderful things about me. I have to believe it. But for those that have the sun in the first house, this is even more powerful. It is even bigger and even stronger. It's just like really powerful, right? And it can be any of these things, like your voice with yourself, your voice with your body, shining, talking about the body, shining, talking about character, or about the person, or a connection with the person. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of different ways. I'm going to like break this down. But there's a lot of different ways this can show up, and it does also makes a difference what sign your house is sitting in, or what sign your sun is sitting in, right? It adds that like little bit of flavor. So just know that what I'm going over today is just like a tidbit of what your sun is saying to you. The second house is all about worth. It's all about value. It's about money. And I just want to say, like the sun in this area can mean that you have a really strong voice with money, or maybe you're really passionate about talking about value, and it's easy for you to communicate about value. It's easy for you to communicate about worth. Like, oh, I just want to listen for a second. One of the things that I have been thinking about with worth and value, you're gonna get a little bit of this, is that oftentimes we want to make money, and we want to like push that money, right? And it ends up being like a backwards thing. We're like trying to make money so that we can fill that hole of value, fill that hole of worth, or prove our worth and prove our value. Really, what happens is when we feel our worth and when we feel our value, then it naturally flows into money, because money is our currency right now. It is an expression of the value and worth. So just remembering that, that's just like a little, that's just like a little tidbit that I wanted to share. So remembering that it goes worth, value leads to money, not money leads to worth and value. But really, the sun shining in that second house can so much be about good at communicating about money, good at like your voice just shines in that area. Okay, the third house. So the third house is all about communication. It's all about Yeah, I think I'm just going to focus for the third house. There's a lot that each house can represent too. And so I just want to, I want you to know that. But I'm just going to go quick over some of my favorite things about each house, right? So the third house being the house of communication. So your voice really shining at communication. And isn't it exciting to say, this is what I'm good at? And this is another reason why I love the natal chart so much, is because it can connect us to what we are incredible at. And when we feel good and when we feel confident, then we're more likely to step into this place of vulnerability and this place of power and the really owning who we are and who we've been divinely created to be. The fourth house is the house of the home. So I do know someone whose sun is sitting in the fourth house, and man, their voice shines so brightly at home. Their family really listens to them, and they really speak up more at home than they do anywhere else in their life. It is so incredibly beautiful. The fifth house, now I'm going to say something a little bit different about the fifth house. Okay, because this is kind of how I've been feeling. And this is kind of like a little bit of what I've heard from the fifth house. Fifth house. This is not necessarily what any other astrologer might say. I don't know. I don't know all astrologers, but Gospel of Astrology, according to Seidel, the fifth house to me screams marketing. Marketing. Isn't that weird? But it does to me. That's what it says to me. It says marketing. It says pleasure. It says creation, right? Like this is the fifth house. And so your voice really shines. If your sun is in the fifth house, it really shines in creation. It shines in marketing. It can shine in marketing, right? And so I want you to drop below in the comments below, what house is your sun sitting in? The sixth house is the house of daily work. And like, let's get it done. Let's do the thing. Strategy and like, I'm just gonna, I mean, probably a lot of people wouldn't say strategy. And Virgo doesn't necessarily speak strategy. Virgo is the natural ruler of the sixth house. Capricorn is more of the strategic. But it's just like following those principles and following the precise principles to get your desired outcome, right? And just like doing it to the T, crossing the D's and dotting the I's. So there we go, like really coming in and your voice shining in that area. The seventh house is intimate relationships. Now, I'm gonna say this, and and it feels so important for me to say the seventh house isn't just with a partner or a spouse. This can also be your intimate relationship with yourself, which I love. It can be friendships, like those intimate friendships that you have, right? So your voice shining in that area. Now, the eighth house, let's move to the eighth house. The eighth house is the house of transformation. It's the house of other things, other people's things, right? And so the eighth house was like really confusing to me for a really long time until I heard the word transformation. And so, oh my gosh, I have just seen so many beautiful people with their sun in the eighth house, and they're like gifted at hearing from the other side and hearing the angels speaking to them and speaking to other people. I have I have seen people with their sun in the eighth house being so magnificent at walking people through the transformative process. I've seen people with their sun sign in the eighth house being ones that really are so good at helping other people help manage their assets. So it's so beautiful. The ninth house is um the ninth house, I'm like, I remember what it is. Don't worry. I just like, there's so much about the ninth house that I just love a lot. The ninth house is the house of teaching. Now, it can also be considered the house of religion if you've seen that. One of the things that I'll get into this a little bit more as we hit the 12th house. But the thing about this that I love that the ninth house is religion and teaching. And the reason why that is because in religion, we learn about God, right? And the 12th house to me is that personal relationship with God. Um, where my son actually is in the 12th house. So religion is teaching, really teaching. It can be travel, like all these things. And it's so beautiful to see people's sun signs in the ninth house. My daughter's sun sign is in the ninth house. And I'll tell you what, people have said to her entire life that she is so good at teaching. I'm saying she's young, she's almost 15. Since fifth grade, people have praised her ability to teach and to help them understand what it is that they're learning in their class, which is incredible. So teaching, your son is teaching, right, in the ninth house. Your voice is good at teaching. Then we have the 10th house, and the 10th house is the house of the public. It's business. It's just like kind of like the world. But it's kind of the world. I'm going to say kind of because I've been hearing lately the 11th house really being the world, like the world at large, right? Because the 11th house is internet. But if your son, and I know people with their son in the 10th house, and I'm like, dang, they are good at business and they hear people's businesses so clearly. And then they're able to share messages and like help people with their business so fantastically because their voice naturally shines in that area. It's like, I don't, hmm, I'm just listening to a couple of things. Um, One, and this probably isn't like a natural thing or like an every astrologer kind of thing. But one of the things that I'm hearing is celebrity, like easy to be a celebrity in the 10th house. Um, the other thing that I'm hearing is, let me see if I can, just listening. The other thing that I hear is this natural place where people in, whether it's in business or it's just in your job, they will naturally lean on you. You're like a natural leader in that area. And I have seen that as well. People with their sun sign, where they work a more secular job that's not necessarily, they don't have their own business, but where people on their team, like they're not even the leader of the team, and people come to them as if they're the leader of the team. Like this person, their boss got fired, and everybody on their team was like, we want you to be our boss. We want you to be our boss. Why are you not asking to be the boss? Can you please be our boss? And they were like, no, I'm not going to be the boss. I do not want that. I do not want that. I'm comfortable. I'm happy in my position. Anyway, so that's how else I can show up. I love listening. I love listening to natal charts because they can just like they have their own unique expression, their own unique expression because we are each divinely designed and we're each unique. Okay, the 11th house, like I said, is like the world. It's like your world, right? The world around you. So groups of friends is also known as the house of hopes and dreams. And so your voice can really shine with hopes and dreams. Your voice can shine in friendships. Your voice can shine on the internet and even with technology. And Hala, for a girl like me who is still working on her relationship with technology, I love people whose voices naturally shine with technology. It's like you just get it, right? And so there's that. And then the 12th house, like I said, the 12th house is the house of a personal relationship with God. It's known as the subconscious. It's known for that. But to me, as I listen to the 12th house, I just hear so deeply that is that personal relationship with God. And I will tell you, as someone who has a son, her son in the 12th house, that is absolutely the case. And the more that I lean into communicating, that's my Gemini son, the more I lean into communicating with God on a regular basis, the easier it is for me to share my voice in other arenas. And so that's why I share this with you today, so that you can hopefully see it, or see a little glimpse of how it is so that you can feel that courage to step out into those other arenas. Okay, like and subscribe this video. Make sure that you comment below with the house that your sign or the house that your sun is sitting in, and I'll see you on the next video.